Okay, good morning everyone. We'll open the meeting of the ordinary meeting of 25th of February 2020. As Interim Administrator, I'm bound to declare any conflicts of interest and potential conflicts of interest. Welcome to country. Ipswich City Council respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners as custodians of the land upon which we meet. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, as the keepers of the traditions, cultures and stories of a proud people. I would ask you all to stand for the reading of the prayer. Let us in silence pray or reflect upon our responsibilities to the people of Ipswich. We meet today to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly and to make decisions that promote the common good. Thank you. Okay, apologies and leave of absence, nil. Condolences, nil. Tributes, nil. Presentations of petitions, nil. Presentations and deputations, nil. Confirmation of the minutes. I resolve and confirm the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on 28th of January 2020. J, Merrill minute, none. Declarations of interest on matters on the agenda, nil. Business outstanding, nil. Reception and consideration of committee reports. Economic Development Committee, resolve and confirm the minutes of the Economic Development Committee. Growth and Infrastructure Committee, resolve and confirmed. Communities Committee, resolve and confirm. Environment, I think we've got some amendments there. Kay, do you want to speak to those just briefly? Yeah, thank you.
So with the report that was put up for Healthy Land and Water membership payment, we sought some further advice in regards to being able to process that through caretaker period. The advice is that it is okay to go through under that exception, under section 235 of the regulation, and that is part of the addendum that we've put forward to add to that report.
Thank you. So we resolve as per the
So there's three new recommendations that were put forward. Yeah.
A, B and C. Okay.
Yep.
Resolve A, B and C as written. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Kay. Now moving to the Governance Committee, we also have an amendment to that. Ben, do you want to have a just quick?
Thank you, Chair. If I may just refer to our Library Customer Services
Okay.
Manager, Sylvia.
Sounds good.
So, in the reporting against the deployment of library pods across the city, we had in the Quarter 2 operational plan report indicated the status of complete. We are actually amending that to on target. We had some community feedback about that because while the program of work that we are going to do for this financial year has been completed, it actually speaks to a broader program of work which aligns to the 10-year capital plan, and that entire program of work has not been completed, so we're amending that status from completed to on target.
Thank you. Okay, so we have the adjusted recommendation up there. Okay. It's a resolve to confirm that of adjusted and amended recommendation. Okay. Moving on, officers' reports. The first is the budget amendment. Jeff Keach? No? Jeff? Ooh.
Good morning, Interim Administrator. I thought I would attend in support of Jeff Keach as our Manager of Finance.
Thanks, Em.
Sonia Cooper, General
Yeah.
Manager Corporate Services. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. The report here is part of our normal processes in which we review throughout the year our budget, and we've undertaken a review based on our December half-year results. And the report is proposing an amend the budget, as we often, as I say, throughout the year, for a number of reasons, reassessing certain impacts that it's gone through the financial year to date, and looking at what that target will be towards the end of the financial year. The details contained within the report, and I'll go through a couple of the key items just for your noting. But as I say, all the details there and as part of the attachments. Overall, the effect of the amendment is from an operating surpluses position, it increases from currently about 2.7 million to 3.3. So there's an overall small increase in our overall operating surplus position. There's a larger increase in what we refer to as our net worth, which includes capital revenue, and that's primarily related to some extra donated assets that we look to be receiving through the year. Just to speak to a couple of the operating revenue items, throughout the financial year we've reported to Council some of the effects around growth on our rates and our town planning fees. So in the last quarter of June last year our growth was lower, and whilst we've maintained, we're still behind on target on rates. So one of the recommendations is to decrease our rates revenue slightly by about $600,000, just reflecting the fact that that growth hasn't been picked back up in the current financial year. And the same is applicable to our town planning fees. We've spoken again to Council around the fact that that's behind with development applications. The Planning and Regulatory Services Department have reviewed that in detail and believe again that we probably won't reach our full year target in those fees and charges. So the recommendation there is to bring that back down to where they think is achievable in those spaces. Offsetting that in a revenue side is that we've received our interim dividend from QUU. We're a shareholder in QUU, Queensland Urban Utilities, and their interim dividend was a couple of $1 million higher. So obviously that's now recommended that increases our revenue in that space as well.
Just on that, Jeff, that's a big difference, isn't it, between?
Yes,
Is their dividend process so variable that that's just a normal?
No, we took, when we did our adopted budget in May, we took a conservative approach, and the corporate plan for QUU gets adopted in July, and their corporate plan does give visibility for the next 2 years now. So we will have more certain of that going forward, but we did take a bit of a conservative approach when we developed our adopted budget.
Yep.
So as that's come through, we've recognised to Council as that revenue comes in and is paid.
Yep.
There's a couple of agendas, I won't go through the detail, where we've received additional grant funding, and that's fairly normal that sometimes that arrives during the year, which we hadn't originally forecast. And offsetting that is a couple of increases in expenses. Again, some of it's offsetting against the grant, so as a grant comes in, you get corresponding expenditure on the other side. And there's a little bit in employee expenses where in our waste area we're under a little bit of pressure with using contractors and waste labour to manage the services, and some contractual payments that we've had to make in that space. So that's generally on the operating side. From a capital expenditure, I guess there's some significant deferrals, to be honest, in some of our capital program. As you're aware, the CBD is a multi-year project. When we adopted the budget last year, we were anticipating that construction for the admin and civic space would commence in May. That's commenced in September. So whilst the overall amount we're spending is not changing, it's purely moving it from this financial to next financial year. It doesn't change the target dates on the CBD or anything like that. It's purely that the budget is a financial year, not in relation to the project. And the same in relation to the retail budget. When that was adopted and the strategy was adopted by Council in November, December, they were hoping by now to be considering the contract for award of the retail. Now that we're in caretaker period, that's unlikely to occur. So the ability for expenditure to occur in this financial year will be more limited, and therefore again it just shifts back into the future year. And on some of our own capital program, there's due to some various delays in some service relocations, etc. That program, which was intended to be delivered, there's a little bit of slippage in that again has moved into the next financial year. And that'll all be reassessed. As you're aware, we're currently going through the budget build for the current year. We'll reassess all those priorities and where those works are deferred with the infrastructure department through that process and bring that back to Council. The only other area to highlight would be our donated assets. As you're aware, we receive significant level of donated assets from developers throughout the year. There's a couple of large ones that have arisen recently where we're starting to process the donation of the Springfield Central Sports Field. So that will come onto council's books as an asset, and the corresponding side of that is we receive donated asset revenue as part of that process. That wasn't anticipated at the time of budget. And we're just seeing general other increases received in the finance team that's from our planning and regulatory, just on other assets donated from the developers. So we're obviously forecasting that that'll exceed our current target. They're non-cash, they're just assets that are received, and then we obviously need to maintain those going forward as part of our asset management plans. I think that's probably the key items. As part of the process, we obviously look at those implications for our long-term financial forecast, and all that's attached in the attachments, where we then readjust our financial sustainability ratios, which are still on track in that space. So,
Okay, thanks.
happy to take any questions or any more detail that you'd like, Mr. Chairman, in that space.
No, it's just when I was reading how the phrase donated assets.
Yeah. Sometimes it's they refer to as more liabilities associated with it. Yes.
Well, no, I think that from a developer's point of view, they give them reluctantly. They don't donate them generously.
Yes. That accounting terminology.
Yeah, it's a very interesting.
And they become a cost to the council. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
But in the end, they're assets that community uses. They are the roads and the parks.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Okay. No, look, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, and thanks, Jeff. Thanks for the explanation. Okay. So we have the recommendation up there. Resolve exactly as per the recommendation, and confirm that. Thank you. So the next item we have is the amended meeting procedures policy. Now, who is talking to that? Sean.
Wade.
Wade. Oh, he got.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Good, thanks. This is a relatively minor one. Following our recent adoption of our meeting procedures policy based on the model delivered by the state, we revealed a couple of minor deficiencies in the policy that was adopted. Nothing too dramatic, just some things to improve the cadence and flow of the meetings, and to ensure consistency with a couple of other policies, namely the public participation at council meetings policy. Just to ensure some consistency with that, we made some minor amendments as they're outlined in the attachment.
So we're ready now.
We believe we are ready, definitely. Only to be fully tested by an incoming council, of course.
Okay. No, that's good. No.
We're waiting for the test pilots.
Absolutely. No, that's great. Okay. No, look, I'm very comfortable with that. So look, so resolve as per the recommendation and confirm that. Thanks, Wade.
Thank you.
Next item is the report of the Audit and Risk Management Committee. Is that yours, David, or is that?
Well, yeah, essentially, this is just that this matter's presented specifically to council. So we note that the strategic risk register is included in the next item. So essentially, it's how the Audit and Risk Management Committee operates. So it's really essentially for noting. Most of these pieces are how the Audit and Risk Management Committee works. So essentially what happens is the Audit and Risk Management Committee reports to council.
Yep, that's good. Okay, I'm comfortable with that. Resolve as per the recommendations A through to G and confirm those. Thank you. Moving on. Notices of motion, nil. Questions on notice, nil. And we will close the meeting now, which is at 9:14. Thank you, everyone.